Yeehaw, I got snake eyes.
Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio?
Today we're building Six, the tiny heroine from the stealth game Little Nightmares, released in 2017. A teeny tiny tyke with a thundering tenacity and terrifying teethers. Our goals to this build are very simple. Six is very mobile, able to climb, slide, and run away from her big nightmares. Six is also able to hide, and hide very well, like under boxes and beds without being seen. Also, we need to bite, like be able to eat things with our teeth, which is going to be a little bit more complicated than I imply. Stay tuned. We get 4 boosts at level 1, put in Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. If you can't guess already, this is going to be a very soft stat-heavy build. For our Ancestry, we are a small, tiny girl, but we are too small to be a hobbit, and we're too small to be a gnome. However, we can be a sprite, which are tiny, but living, breathing creatures, which is why she's not a poppet. You get 6 hit points, you're a size tiny, get a speed of 20 feet, you get boost to your Dexterity and Intelligence plus 1 free one to put them in a Charisma, you get a flaw to your Strength. We're going to take mandatory flaws to take another damaging hit to our Strength and Constitution in order to boost our Wisdom. You don't need Strength and you really don't need Constitution, you die on 1 hit in this game. You get low light vision, meaning you can see in dim light as though we're bright light. You can ignore concealed condition in dim light. And for magical strikes, all your strikes are magical, whether armed strikes or with weapons in your hands. The heritage for 6 threw me through a loop, I'm not going to lie, and not in the way you think. Looking through the game and playing through it once or twice, I've come to a realization. 6 gets her powers from eating, even draining life out of things she consumes. Spoilers for the game, if you haven't played or watched it in the last 5 years, she eats a little gnome, and the final boss was one big bad evil energy, the latter of which gave her a huge power boost, so I'm going to call her a vampire. For all purposes, she is. She's primarily in the dark, she bites people and drains them of life. Don't tell me that doesn't sound like a vampire, or a vampire in Pathfinder 2e. It does. You get the vampire trait along with your ancestry traits. You get negative healing, means negative energy heals you, and positive energy harms you as if you were undead. You get low light vision, or dark vision since we already have low light. And we can pick feats from vampire or sprite to help us along, which is what we're going to need later. And for our feat, since we have our heritage, we're going to pick a Spectre, a fairly typical vampire. I hope I said that right.
Цветочер, 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 цветочер.
When you have the drain condition, calculate the penalty to your fortitude saves and hit point reduction, as though the condition was valued at 1 lower, which should be good when you have the munchies in this game. You're trained in diplomacy. If you're automatically trained in something else, you get a skill of your choice, but we're going to take diplomacy, so we don't have no skills yet. For background, children are often down on their luck and barely surviving given the world they're born into in this game, so I think street urchin is the best way to describe someone like 6. Pick 2 ability boosts. One has to be Dexterity or Constitution. Pick Dexterity and pick 1 free one. Pick Intelligence. You're trained in Thievery and a lore skill for the city you lived in as a street urchin. The mod would be appropriate for this game, or whatever city your 6 is privy to. I'm not in your game, so you can pick whatever. You also get the Pickpocket feat. Who would have guessed a game primarily based around stealth and not getting caught would be trained in the Rogue class, which 6 is going to be a rogue. You're an expert in perception, an expert in reflex and will saves, and you're trained in fortitude. For skills, you get stealth for being a rogue. You're trained in 1 more skills determined by your rogue racket, which we'll talk about later, but spoiler alert, it's thievery, which we already have, so we get to pick something else, which is fun. You're trained in a number of skills equal to 7 plus your intelligence modifier equals 10 plus our thievery, which we're going to change to something else. So you get athletics, acrobatics, stealth, deception, occultism, society, nature, intimidation, survival, arcana, and we need 1 more. Pick whatever you want. May I suggest performance, because why not? For attacks, we're trained in simple weapons, as well as the rapier, sap, short bow, and short sword, as well as unarmed attacks. We don't need any of those. We're not going to be using any weapons in this build. For defenses, you're trained in light armor and armor defense. Light armor is pretty simple, it's just a raincoat in typical circumstances. And for our class DC, we're trained the Rogue class DC. The only other rogue I've built on this channel, I believe, is Chucky. So we know now that skills and skill feats are things that rogues get every single level after the first. Sometimes including the first for skill feats. So I'm going to be highlighting the number of skills I'm going to be choosing for each level in this bracket here. You'll see athletics, acrobatics, thievery, stealth, and deception are getting the big ones in terms of boosts. Those are the things you primarily use in this game. They're all going to be useful and accountable for all our actions in this game, so rely on them. And for our skill feats, they're going to be putting up on the screen. Now, you notice they'll be focusing primarily on being sneaky, such as Shadow Mark at later levels. Subtle Theft, Swift Sneak, Legendary Thief, Legendary Sneak. All useful skill feats for a little skill hound such as 6. For our first level, we get to pick our Rogue's Racket, and our Rogue's Racket for 6 is going to be Thief. When you attack with finesse melee weapons, you can use your Dexterity modifier for damage rolls instead of Strength, and you're trained in Thievery. We also get Sneak Attack on the first round of combat if you roll Deception or Stealth for Initiative. Creatures who haven't acted yet are flat-footed to you. And for our Rogue feat at this level, get Nimble Dodge, getting a +2 bonus to your AC against a triggering attack. It's useful when every touch in this game is a TKO, so word of advice, do not get grabbed. Our second level Rogue feat is going to be Mobility. When you take the stride action to move half your speed or less, that movement does not trigger reactions, and you can use Mobility when you're climbing, flying, or swimming instead of striding if you have the corresponding movement type. This is really useful in a stealth game like 6 is in, because you don't want to accidentally trigger people just by moving past them with an attack of opportunity or anything of the like. At our third level, we get Deny Advantage. You're on flat-footed, hidden, undetected, or flanking creatures of your level or lower, or creatures of your level or lower using Sneak Attack. However, they can still help their allies flank. This is very useful in a stealth game, especially when you have people who tend to hop on you without you noticing. And for our General Feats level, get Incredible Initiative, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to your initiative roll in order to be ahead of those giant monsters we're trying to escape from. At our fourth level, we get Predictable. Choose one target and attempt a perception check to sense motive against the creature's DC, Deception, or a hard DC of their level, whatever is higher. And on a critical success, you get a +2 bonus to your AC against the creature at the start of your next turn, and a +2 bonus to your next saving throw against the creature at the start of your next turn. And on a success, it's a +1, and on a failure, you don't get anything, and on a critical failure, you get a -1 to yours. I think this is very useful because you tend to watch out for other monsters' movements, and when you're able to make a strategy against it, which is very much in 6's character. At our fifth level, we get ability boost from Dexterity, Wisdom, Intelligence, Charisma. For our Ancestry feat, get Taste Blood. You can drink fresh blood from a living humanoid creature, gaining temporary HP equal to that target's level for 10 minutes. The target must succeed a saving throw of Fortitude that is higher than your class DC or become drained 1. Regardless of the outcome, you can't do this again for 1 day. You also get a Sneak Attack of 2d6, but don't worry about it, we don't use Sneak Attack. We also get Weapon Tricks. You get X proficiency in simple weapons and armed attacks, as well as the Rapier, Sap, Shortborn, Sword. I wouldn't be necessarily worried about this. You don't really use weapons, so not in her character. For a 6th level Rogue feat, get Light Step. When you stride or step, you can ignore difficult terrain, which is very important in a stealth platformer. At the 7th level, we get Evasion. Your proficiency rank and reflex saves increase to Master. When you roll a success, you get a critical success instead. For a General feat, get Ancestral Paragon and pick Fangs, because 6 has no bark but has a surprising bite. For a d6 worth of damage when you bite people, get Visual and Senses. Your rank and Perception increases up to Master. Very important when you keep an eye out for enemies. Weapon Specialization, deal 2 additional damage weapons and armed attacks in which you're expert in, and they increase up to 3 damage if you're a master in them. For our 8th level Rogue feat, get Anticipate Ambush. You keep watch for any hidden creatures or dangerous sites, moving at half your travel speed. If you're anticipating an ambush at the start of an encounter, roll a Perception check for initiative, and all enemies rolling stealth for initiative take a -2 penalty to their stealth checks, which is very important when you're trying to not be snuck up upon by evil janitors or evil cooks. At the 9th level, we get an Ancestry feat. Bloodletting Fangs means you get to deal an additional 1d4 persistent bleed damage on a critical hit. Debilitating Strike isn't really important since 6 doesn't deal damage, but if you do end up dealing damage, you can pick between several different debilitations, such as a target takes a -10 penalty to their speeds, or becomes enfeebled 1. And with Great Fortitude, your rank in Fortitude saves increases up to Expert. At the 10th level, you get Ability Boost. Again, put in Dexterity, Wisdom, Intelligence, Charisma. For a Rogue feat level, get Sneak Savant. When you roll a failure on a sneak check, you get a success instead, which means you don't really fail when you get a critical failure, which is when you typically break something or you get right in the enemy's line of sight. At the 11th level, get a General feat, get Fleet to increase our land speed by 5 for 25 feet at this level. Rogue Expertise, your rank in Rogue class DC increases up to Expert, and a Sneak Attack is 3d6, which doesn't matter because we don't really need it. And for our 12th level Rogue feat, get Tactical Entry. When you roll Stealth for initiative in this encounter and neither you or any of your enemies have acted in this encounter, you can stride, and this movement doesn't trigger any reactions, so you can move up to 75 feet or, 15 squares and not get any type of reactions out of your enemies, which is good when you need to quickly dive into cover. The 13th level is a big one. For Ancestry feat, get Daywalker. When in the area of direct sunlight, your negative healing is suppressed, meaning you can be healed by positive and harmed by negative when in daylight. Improved Evasion, your reflex saves increase with the legendary, and when you roll a critical failure, get a failure instead. And when you roll a failure on a reflex save that would result in damage, you only take half damage. Your Perception gets up to legendary with Incredible Senses. With light armor expertise, your light and unarmored defense increase up to expert. With master tricks, you gain master proficiency in simple and unarmed attacks, as well as your rapier, sap, short bow, and short sword, which doesn't matter because 6 doesn't use any of those, but the perception is great, so we can see our enemies from a ways away and react to it just as fast. At the 14th level, we can pick up preparation. You gain 1 additional reaction, which you can use before the beginning of your next turn for any rogue reaction. Use this with nimble dodge to get a +2 AC against a different person trying to attack you this round, which is great to keep up that high AC. At the 15th level, we get ability boost. Once again, put in dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, charisma. Double debilitation. When you use debilitating strike, you can apply 2 debilitations simultaneously, but removing 1 removes both of them. For general feat, get canny acumen to get our fortitude up to master at level 17. We also get greater weapon specialization. Our damage from our weapon specialization increases to 4 with weapons and unarmed attacks we're expert in, and 6 if we're a master. For our 16th level feat, get swift evasion. Attempt an acrobatics check against a rival's reflex DC if they end their movement right next to you, and if you succeed, you can stride in a different space adjacent to them, or you can move that foe in a different space adjacent to you. This is great if you want to end your movement under an object they can't reach under, or to get yourself in a preferable position with your allies. At the 17th level, we get an Ancestry feat, and at this level, we can get Symphony of Blood. Once per day, you can cast Vampiric Exsanguination as a 7th level Divine Innate spell. I was so worried about having to dip into casting classes in order to get this last big bit at the end, but seeing this amongst the Dampfire feats made me so happy, made me happier than 6 jumping on a gnome. And we also get Slippery Mind at this level. Our rank and will saves can increase up to master, and when you roll success, you get critical success instead. We also get 4d6 sneak attack, which is not important because 6 does not attack people with weapon. At the 18th level, we get implausible infiltration from our rogue feat. You find tiny holes or imperfections that no one else could see, and you can try to fit yourself into them, possibly by moving directly through a wall or a floor from one side to the other. Your movement attempt fails if the wall or floor is made out of something other than wood, plaster, or stone, is thicker than 10 feet, or contains even a thin layer of metal. This feat basically describes the whole game. I think it's more than perfect for 6. At the 19th level, we get a general feat. We can get Skitter to crawl half your speed. For light armor mastery, we increase our proficiency ranks in light armor and unarmored defense up to master. We also get Master Strike. Your proficiency rank in rogue class DC increases up to master, and you gain the Master Strike as a free action. It triggers when your strike hits a flat-footed creature and deals damage. They must attempt a fortitude save against your class DC. Either way, they become immune for 1 day. If they have a critical success, they're unaffected. If it's a success, they're enfeebled until the end of your next turn. On a failure, they're paralyzed for 4 rounds. On a critical failure, they can be paralyzed for 4 rounds, knocked unconscious for 2 hours, or straight up killed. It's your choice. At the 20th level, we get our last 4 ability boosts. Put in dexterity, wisdom, constitution, and charisma. We can't boost up intelligence anymore at our flat 20. And constitution leaves us at a flat 0, meaning we only gain 8 health every level, which is fine. And for our rogue feats, get Hidden Paragon. You become invisible for 1 minute, even if you use a hostile action. No glitter dust, see invisibility, or similar effects can reveal you, though creatures can still use the seek action to locate you as normal. What's better than this for a stealth game? So with all that being said, do you want to be a little nightmare? Let's talk about stealth. With a 34 in stealth, and a -4 with shadow mark against a specific target, always taking heed of special senses, moving your full speed, on a failed sneak check that's still considered a success, you get 2 reactions to use Swift Illusion if an opponent moves too close to you, and you can just move your speed in a more favorable position next to the opponent, like under a box or a table. You can steal keys without anybody noticing, and you can hide and seek without using cover. Her feats are also great at keeping her mobile and nimble, with a climb speed equal to your land speed, the ability to climb and move through tight spaces, steady balance to move across swift and narrow passages, even finding tiny holes in wood, plaster, and stone. Your AC is also great, with Master and Armor leveling out from low 34 with Unarmored, 36 with Nimble Dodge, and 38 with Predictable, making 6 very hard to hit. And with our high soft stats, making 6 a well-rounded character in terms of saving throws and certain skills. Outside of that, high charisma just makes you a great face for the party. And you're also a baby vampire bat with the ability to drain enemies should you feel so inclined to for temporary HP. And your 17th level vampire ability gives you the chance to deal 14d6 worth of damage to all creatures in a 30-foot cone and gain temporary hit points equal to half the damage from a single creature. It could be the difference between life and death, especially someone with your low HP. Normally I would cover damage and health in these kind of builds, but this is not a damage build. 6 does not do any damage outside of very specific circumstances. But if you feel so inclined to do some attacking back, 46 worth of sneak attack damage as long as your enemy's flat-footed. You can use Dex for both your attack rolls and damage rolls, but that's not in our character. But I'm not playing your 6, I'm showing you how I would play my 6. You're not here to stab someone in the back though, you're here to escape the maw in your cute little raincoat. Climb some beams, hide inside some crates, grab an old skeleton key, and crawl your way towards the exit. Just make sure to keep your hands to yourself, or else you might find yourself all a gnome. Get it? Like the gnomes.